Electrocast.
New Vitamin Water Zero Sugar Pineapple Passion Fruit is packed with vitamins, just like the amount of peas we packed in that sentence. It's packed like your tote bag, the one you stole from your ex, or your overpriced half a studio apartment, or extra rushed rush hour traffic. Packed like your calendar, triple booked at 5, of course. Grab a Vitamin Water. Did we mention it's packed with vitamins?
Tonight, turn down the noise of the day and focus on the rest with AGZ, the nightly drink for winding down and resting up. New from AG1. AGZ supports your body's natural sleep cycle with clinically studied key herbs, adaptogens, and minerals in amounts supported by research. And no melatonin, helping you wake feeling rested. Wind down, rest up with AGZ. Learn more at drinkagz.com.
I'm Iris, your host of the Powers of Darkness podcast. Who wrote the mysterious lost version of Dracula? A group of historical researchers and authors will do anything to find out. Lust, money, betrayal, power. It's all here in the Powers of Darkness podcast. Available October 2025.
I know what you are.
Say it.
Vampire.
Nosferatu. These creatures do not die, but instead grow strong, feeding on the blood of the living.
Border wingers. Try to hide. They're coming.
Welcome to Vampire Month with Wesley and Iris.
What up? And welcome to Or Whatever Movies. I'm your co-host, Iris, and I'm here with my older brother,
Wesley.
Today we're talking a movie. Today we're talking a movie from 2025, available on Max. Sinners.
And why are we talking about Sinners? Because it's Haint Month here at Or Whatever Movies.
Including other Haint movies like From Dusk Till Dawn, which, speaking of, kind of a lot like Sinners.
Ryan Coogler, director, writer, producer of Sinners, actually said that From Dusk Till Dawn and The Faculty were prime inspirations for Sinners, both directed by your boy, Robert Rodriguez. But I can see, I actually didn't make the From Dusk Till Dawn connection. You're talking about like a honky-tonk bar in that one, Smoking Stacks juke joint, kind of being a singular location for all the vampire goings-on. Even though stuff takes place outside, it's primarily a vampires in the house kind of vibe.
Yeah. It's a survive until daybreak kind of vibe. There's also the Quentin Tarantino revisionist history justice angle. It's not quite burning all of the Nazis in the theater, but Michael B. Jordan throws down on them Klan members.
He kills like at least 20 of them with a single Tommy gun. They all have ample cover. They all have guns as well. He kills all of them.
He picks them off sniper style, and then he comes out with the Tommy gun. All like Kurt Russell storming the river.
The Tommy gun scene featured strongly in the trailers and the promo stuff of a distractingly jacked Michael B. Jordan with his Tommy gun. And I noted in the trailer, I was like, that's not nighttime. So it's probably not vampires because it's still daytime. Remarkably, in one night, they got a fully formed juke joint full of people in one day after breezing back into town crazy. But the relationships were good. Everybody had a decent backstory all the way down to Delta Slim and Mary and Bo and Grace had their backstory and story. It felt fully formed. Is it even primarily a vampire movie? Is it a musician movie? Is it a Southern culture movie? Is it a black experience movie? What is it? I guess it can be all those things, but for the purposes of labeling it, it's vampire action horror, right? In the video section.
Yeah, and maybe misleading in some of the IMDb featured reviews are of people saying that they're disappointed that they come for the fangs and the stakes and the blood, and they don't get that.
Well, you know that they're perfectly willing to get down because Remick is all like convincing the couple to let him in and stuff. And and Stack and Mary are all put together at the end. If you bite someone in this world, it doesn't require, like the Lost Boys or whatever, that they take blood in turn to fully turn or whatever. They're just like the 28 days, weeks, years later zombies. Once you're bitten, you're done. And then you pop up and you join the merry dance. I guess the overarching question is, what is Sinners about?
There's certainly plenty of racial commentary. There's certainly historical Black experience. There is
historical Chinese experience.
Yep, the immigrant experience. There's also thematically, like, what is life? What's worth living for? Freedom, a huge aspect of what the, at least Smoke and Stack characters are dealing with. Following your dream. I mean, the fact that Preacher Boy is literally clutching the head of his broken guitar as he drives away says something about following your dream.
Yeah, it seems like that's come to define Sammy's identity, is clutching that guitar.
So there's a lot going on in Sinners. Were they overly ambitious? Is this overhyped, as some of the featured reviews on IMDb say?
This movie came through really, really strongly in terms of critical reviews. It's in the high 90s, both for audience and critical. So obviously people have to come out and trash the movie. So I think most of those don't believe the hype. I was super disappointed. It would come as a result from this wave of popularity. And then people have to be naysayers. They have to stand out from the pack and get their voice heard. Ryan Coogler went pretty deep. Did you note that when Smoke shows up at Bo and Grace's store, that the dad says, "Go get your mother," to Lisa, and she walks across the street to the other Chinese grocery where her mom was, and that one was flooded with white people? There were 2 Chinese groceries, as was period accurate. One serving white customers and the other serving Black customers. 2 different fully stocked stores, not rearranged in the same space, with a whole bunch of extras. The whole street, in fact, the dudes working on the car in the background, and we track Lisa all the way across the street into the store to get her mom and show the mom coming back and talking to Smoke in one uninterrupted shot. Pretty immersive. Ryan Coogler is a real student of cinema and is meticulous and careful and purposeful, elaborately constructed, and so it's no surprise that his research would be kind of on point. So I feel like this is a cultural movie more than anything that ends up having vampires. He is not a horror fan, so maybe the vampires are a metaphor.
Having a future, creating a future for yourself, these are things that the main characters are struggling with and aspiring for, right? Not only having a future, but having a semblance of control over your future, which a parallel, sure, to the historical Black experience, especially at this kind of pivotal moment in time.
Yeah, Jim Crow South, 1930s. Definitely a tough time. The white people have them boxed in, quite literally, not just when the vampires come for them. They have to move carefully. They, don't look them directly in the eye. Don't stare at if we let these crackers in or whatever. And what happens if one person stares at the lady just a little bit too long, and it's more trouble than it's worth inviting them in.
And it becomes a fight.
They have to be very careful and purposeful about what they're doing. Chicago is a little bit different, and they were rambunctious outlaws. And when they get home, they have to be careful, and they have to be civil and speak nicely. What can I do for you folks this evening, says Cornbread to Remick and friends. Not trying to start any trouble, and don't want to invite trouble into their house.
It's obviously an intentional choice that the vampires, at least the initial ones, are white. The blue-eyed devil vampires.
Wait, how can you tell they're white? Number one, it was red-eyed devil in the case of Remick and white-eyed for the other ones. But what? Oh, was it because of the Irish jigs and the Irish brogue that they put on? That's in stark contrast to the goings-on inside the Smoke and Stack's juke joint?
Well, yeah, so there was that contrast, and that was an interesting choice as opposed to going with just Southern whites. I guess the Southern whites are represented by the now underground Klan members, and then there's the Irish European vampire set, like these Black folk, can I say that? Beset upon by different forms of white devils.
Whew. Never has a harmony been haunted like the songs that Remick and his friends sing. It's beautiful, but it's super eerie.
It's like crossing over into Galadriel beauty territory. It's so beautiful, it's scary.
Delta Slim probably says it best when he tells the story about the musician, his buddy, who he saw get lynched for the money in his pocket.
Dude.
They're just trying to stay alive in a white world. And then the white people come a-calling, and there's not a whole lot you can do.
That's an interesting take, because it was hard for me to know exactly what to take from the story. Brian asked if his story meant that the people on the chain gang, did they all kill the perpetrators? How did that story connect to the chain gang?
I don't know that it connected specifically, other than Delta Slim was a man of his time and place and knew all of those people, and they were being manacled, being confined, restricted, held down by the white man and not allowed to be free. It was the prison thing was kind of a modern parallel. And he was free. What did he say? Keep your heads about you, or keep your heads up or your eyes up. And then the white officer fires his gun and everybody quiets down really fast.
Right, in the distance totally made me jump. The story also serves to show the difference between Stack and Delta Slim, who can take this story, understand its gravity, and then they kind of not laugh it off, but it's like, they're like, that's life. They start singing and laughing, whereas Sammy, the preacher boy, is still processing, like, man, like, what does this mean, and how do I find my place in this world?
Yeah, but he is defying the wishes of his dad, who told him that, the music is the devil and it's going to bring the devil if you keep doing that or whatever. And he's in now with criminals, with Slim. Well, I guess maybe Slim wasn't overtly a criminal. They picked him up for vagrancy. But Smoke and Stack, definitely a bad element as far as Sammy's dad was concerned. He was fraternizing with the enemy, with the devils. And maybe he was trying to find, did I really get into this place that Dad said I was going to be if I persisted in this secular music?
I mean, following his dream, and to the preacher's credit, it's not like he forbids his son to go play the music. And it's a little bit like, all right, as long as you're back by service on Sunday, like, it's all good. It's when he shows up bloodied and beaten and battle hardened, right, that the dad's like, this is obviously a product of your sin, or the sins of those that you fraternize with, or whatever. But still, for whatever reason, Sammy's experience galvanizes him as opposed to turning him in a different direction.
Yeah. And we see everything that he wants. Best night of his life, before it got crazy.
Right. Best night of his life, which we saw in flashbacks. All of the camaraderie that was had in standing up the juke joint in the middle of the day. Right? They're cooking, they're setting things up, they're getting everything ready. And that was, I think, the part that and of course performing well, and then probably him getting with Pearline or whatever, that made it the best day of his life.
Not Pearline's best day, although maybe in her life, because after that she wasn't alive. Maybe that was a good day for her until it wasn't.
Maybe.
It got crazy very quickly that day. Like, they were in it, and all of a sudden they were juke jointing, and you're like, wait. I get the sense that they rolled into town and they're famous. Everyone knows who the Smokestack twins are. They still have alliances. They still have friends. Slim is on board once he gets free beer. Bo and Grace are on board to cook catfish for 100. What are you guys doing? You got your store open today? Yeah. Stop what you're doing. Catfish for 100 people plus a sign. Get on it. And they're like, okay. Everybody came together and stuff. They must have swept that thing down and got the blood off the floor from when the Klansmen had killed a bunch of people in the thing. And
they cleaned it up before they sold it. They noticed that the floor was clean.
But not so clean that there wasn't stuff on the floor. And then he was spitting on the floor. Hog's Row or whatever his name was. Hedgehog. I still thought, give yourselves a weekend, guys, but whatever.
How about a soft opening?
Yeah. The point is not how quickly we can put up a juke joint, but the fact that they did it. And it wasn't about the place. It was about the space where it gave everybody who came the freedom to eat and fellowship and be happy and be free. And they could be themselves, not, behind closed doors in the white world or whatever. And then you just try to keep the white people out. What Slim said, it's with this here ritual, We heal our people and we be free. That's a direct quote. And we saw all the stuff that Sammy was hoping for. He can be in church with his dad, or he can play music for the sweaty people, as his dad said. He can transcend space and time. And even Bo and Grace, who were down with the rhythms, they didn't sing or perform music of any kind. Maybe they sang along, but even they had their Chinese dancer accompaniment on the dance floor. And it's just connecting to your culture and your heritage or whatever, unlocking the universe, space and time. That is what they were shooting for.
That was pretty wild. They tread the line of going off the rails with the scene when the spirits are summoned. But for me, it worked. And it almost turned Smoke and Stack's venture into a noble one. Like it had a noble purpose of allowing the clientele a place where they could be free and be safe. And yet they had this fatal business flaw. They were spending money like crazy. Did they not realize that maybe they couldn't make back their money when their clientele is working on loans?
Yeah. Wooden nickels and plantation credits.
Working on credits. Ugh. Like things for me very suddenly came to a head. Where suddenly they're like, this is not sustainable. We got to do something. For Smoke and Stack, who seemed to have it all thought out, the fact that they suddenly were so cash-strapped that a couple of gold ducats from the white people was going to make a difference was very strange.
Probably the biggest disconnect in the movie, the fact that they're tough, hardened Chicagoland gangsters or whatever that seemed to be in it ultimately for this cultural experience. And always in the back of their mind, knowing this isn't sustainable, their characters weren't about culture or redemption or freedom. It was all about getting ahead until it wasn't. Very interesting.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. When you visit the doctor, you probably hand over your insurance, your ID, and contact details. It's just one of the many places that has your personal info. And if any of them accidentally expose it, you could be at risk for identity theft. LifeLock monitors millions of data points a second. If you become a victim, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Disney Plus wants to know, are you ready? For Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts, The New Avengers, now streaming on Disney Plus.
Let's do this.
One of the best Marvel movies of all time is now streaming on Disney Plus.
Hey, you weren't listening to me.
I said Thunderbolts, The New Avengers is now streaming on Disney Plus.
Meet the New Avengers.
That's cool name.
Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts, The New Avengers, rated PG-13, now streaming on, you guessed it, Disney Plus.
Portray them that way. I guess they were just supposed to be tough and ruthless.
It seemed to me that writer Ryan Coogler needed to find a way to bring the white vampires back. It didn't seem story motivated. It seemed shoehorned into the story that was otherwise really working for me. But whatever. So they get them back, and Cornbread wisely refuses them entrance on the basis of what maybe just a little bit of instinct and that these white people are really creepy. But then Mary is and leaves, and then she can't come back. Why can't Mary come back in to the juke joint?
She can, because she was initially invited in. She insisted that Cornbread re-invite her in after she became a vampire. So it seems like after you become a vampire, you need to be allowed in. Thus, Stack, who was bitten, who then leaves, can't come back, even though he was obviously originally admitted. Same thing with Cornbread, who was inside, can't come back inside. She could have. It seemed like she was biding her time, letting the army amass. And so the rules are only that once you're a vampire, once you're invited, then you're perennially welcome, if that's the right word.
Stack was turned into a vampire. I don't know if he was ever invited back in, but Mary should have definitely been able to come back in. And given how these vampires seem to operate, she could have come back in and done a lot of damage on her own. Instead, she leaves. Why do Mary and Stack flee when Smoke stakes his wife?
I get the sense that they wanted it to be heaven on earth for all of them. And by killing Annie, Smoke showed that he had no interest in having a vampire family or that vampire community. One of them said it was all a good plan until you killed Annie. Why did you do that? And then they left.
We had it all planned out. All right, fair. He might have dashed their vampire dreams, but the fact that they flee because of it, a little strange. So the narration makes it very clear that if you kill the head vampire, the others don't die. But they certainly feel his pain, because when Preacher Boy nails Remick in the head with the guitar, Remick feels that, and all of his vampire minions feel that.
Yep.
Also, when Smoke kills Remick, all of the vampires die. But Stack and Mary don't die. What is happening?
So we're going to switch the focus of this review. This was about culture and Smoke and Stack and Chicago and Delta Slim and all the coming back to Mississippi or whatever. And now it's about vampires.
This is Vampire Month.
And for being a vampire movie, this may be not the strongest vampire movie. When we get down to business and it gets crazy, it's actually pretty basic. The rules were a little bit unclear, and so what was happening was kind of strange. I'm going to argue that Remick was staked and was in the process of dying, but he was vastly old. When he talked about the people coming to take his land, he was talking about Christianity being brought to Ireland. You know how long ago that was?
0 BC?
1,300 years ago. And when you've got that much age in you, that much mileage, it takes you a minute to die. So he was dying, but the sun clearly came up, which was what I think set him on fire. Now, were the others frozen in place because he was in pain and they were paralyzed by their agony? But the sun crested the trees and the hills and caught them all on fire. They died because they were exposed to the sun. They were maybe in pain because Remick was in pain, even though that wouldn't have killed them. And the fact that they set up the wonkiest on film vampire rule of not being able to come through the door unless you're invited or whatever means that they were kind of bound by those rules. And Ryan Coogler, not being a horror fan, was making a different kind of movie that just happened to have symbolic vampires in it. But the vampires in this movie were my kind of vampires. You know what a sucker I am for bad guys with red eyes and those little pinpricks of evil in their eyes.
Super scary.
Oh God! When they're all singing, they're calm, they're patient. When they're just waiting, biding their time, and they're singing out there in the parking lot for Mary to discover them. They're lit from above, so their eyes are these black hollows and stuff. They're
their
not
voices in the wood, throwing their voices around cornbread.
Very scary.
Terrifying.
Kelly did note the varying lengths of teeth. Some of them had extreme. Remick at the end had Fright Night face, but it wasn't ridiculous. It wasn't Renfield vampire teeth, like where they're all sharp. But man, these vampires, I'm going to say it, I am with the vampires on this one, man.
What? What do you mean?
That Sammy be allowed to survive and live his life. Smoke's dying wish to already dead Stack was stay away from him. Let him live out his life. Is Sammy better off ultimately than Stack, where he lives his life waking up in terror from that night that was otherwise the best night of his life? Stack's all chill. He's fashionable. Mary's hair grew, and so did Stack's, so he can have that sculpted 90s look. He said, we can make it. You can still tour. No pain. What was the drawback, the big drawback of being a vampire in this movie? Remick said, the world left you for dead. We'll let you build and fellowship. Better this way. They have a hive mind. The White Devil, because he was in the hive mind with the other vampires, spoke Chinese to Grace and freaked her out. It was her undoing. It seemed like the vampires had it going on. They weren't grossed out by killing people and blood all over their faces. They didn't seem bothered by grievous wounds, like graphic wounds on their bodies. They were fine. Cornbread was still chilling and hoedowning when he had his throat all tore up, and the other guy when he got shot through the face and stuff. What's the problem? What's the drawback? Is it so Sammy can go to heaven? Is that the only thing? Because Smoke dies in the dirt with the ghost of his wife and baby, and that's great. But I don't know, man.
All like Gladiator style,
right?
This question is not unique to Sinners. What Sinners does is puts a finer point on it. You see how glamorous 90s Stack and Mary look. And you see how age has worn Sammy down, that he wakes up in terror every day, as you aptly pointed out. You know, we kind of get the filmmaker's point of view on this. Ryan Coogler and the team are saying something that we can extrapolate from this, but ultimately the fundamental question is the same. What is the cost of immortality? And it's basically you have to feed on and murder people.
You'll never grow old, Michael, and you'll never die, but you must feed.
That's what I'm saying. So, sure, I mean, if you have no qualms with feeding on and murdering people, then you can be ageless. You can be without a certain kind of very mortal fear. You can live forever. You can fly. These vampires, like in Lost Boys, they can fly. When Remick lifts off from the ground, there wasn't even a sting or anything.
Nope.
And I jumped out of the couch. It's a pretty basic question. You know, do you want to, life is terrifying and immortality is very alluring, but you have to pay a price.
Well, I don't know. They're no less shunned than the live sinners are. Smoke and Stack, they're shunned by society. But Remick and Joan and Bert were in their sad house with their shotgun, all afraid. Did you note the baby crib next to Remick's bloody face? They were trying to have a baby or something, or it didn't work out. They seemed happy. All their cares were gone. They were still musically inclined, good harmony. They seemed to believe the fellowship and love message that they were preaching. They seemed like they were being kind to one another. They were dancing, unfazed by their terrible wounds. I don't see what the problem is, because you don't have to be afraid, and things seem to be okay.
Well, we know when you get the box of choice or whatever, we know what button you're going to push. So we've talked about Sinners as a cultural movie. We've talked about Sinners as a vampire movie. Can we talk about Sinners as a movie?
Movie. Oh, man. This is glorious 65 millimeter IMAX. Kodak created a film stock, like a 16 perf or something ridiculous film stock for this. And like I said, Ryan Coogler's student of film, I saw it in beautiful IMAX, where she says, "Come on in," and the vampires rush in and the screen visibly widens. Holy cow, that was great.
It's extremely cinematic and very immersive, although a little distracting when it went back to the letterbox.
Yeah.
So there was this special film, and there was this wonderful, almost kind of eerie depth of field. Like, it didn't feel just like focus. They were employing some kind of technique where it was almost like multi-dimensional. Did you notice that some scenes felt 3D?
So my understanding is the film stock, the 65 millimeter, creates a shallow depth of focus. And so maybe the 3D effect is that the images that were forward on screen seemed more forward because the other stuff by necessity was out of focus.
It was bonkers, and it was so beautiful. The colors were so rich. For such a cinematic movie, and for a movie in the horror genre, did you notice Sinners? Kind of a talker. They're at the juke joint and people are dancing and writhing and going crazy, and they're talking. And then the vampires are coming to the door and they're talking.
It was a relatively, for this kind of movie, low budget movie shot on remarkable looking film stock. It was like an elevated talkie. What I'm going to say that this is Ryan Coogler's Inception. He did take some advice and consulted with Christopher Nolan, and he also spoke to a lot of twins and how twins would act, what their shorthand would be, what their mannerisms toward each other would be and stuff. That's probably where most of the effects budget went, was pretty convincing work, showing Stack and Smoke as two distinctly different people, where they're passing that,
trading the cigarette back and
multiple.
forth.
That was scripted as like one pass, and we've seen that a million times. But they did it over and over again with a slow push in on them with these magnificent cameras. Really well done. But this movie was kind of heady culturally, kind of a talkie, but it was a big, ambitious movie, but it was a risk that he took for a wholly original movie with no previous IP that had no guarantees whatsoever in the middle of his gigantic superhero run and these big movies, the Black Panthers that he was doing. This is like Christopher Nolan in the middle of the Batman, being like, I'm going to do this wild, crazy, ambitious, pretty expensive sci-fi movie that's been in my head for a long time with Inception.
I think it was a choice like bucking the trends in the genre, making this a really meaningful horror movie with characters who have backstories and are interconnected and have relationships. Like it's a very deep movie, and I think we were able to achieve that because he spends so much of the screen time with these characters. One missed opportunity for Sinners. Were you not waiting for the Choctaw to come back? Where were they?
No.
They were vampire hunters, so perfectly introduced in Remic's introduction, and they never come back. What a missed opportunity! I couldn't wait. I was even hoping they'd come back in the post credits or the mid credits scene.
Yeah.
Nope.
Kelly noted that there were some missed opportunities. Like I said, when it gets down and dirty, which is the only time the Choctaw would have showed up, some wonkiness was going on. The fighting wasn't particularly clear. I didn't think the vampire action was all that great. It might have benefited from the Choctaw kicking open the door and whooping and staking everybody or whatever. But this is not what this movie was. Remember Stack was saying, I wanted you to be safe, and safe is not with me, and safe is not here, and I just wanted you to be safe, and maybe that's why he left. Remember, if Mary spends too much time hanging out with the colored folk, then the white folks would maybe hurt her or even lynch her. Did you get that sense?
Yeah, well, I mean, it seemed like it was genuine.
I don't think you should be here. This isn't where you should be. And she's like, boy, if you don't get the fuck out of my face. Why would Stack then let her go outside? If the crackers who were at the door, if he was worried about them.
We're creeping him out?
Yeah. You go outside and talk with them. And she's like, I'll go get the money from 3 people, which isn't going to make a dent in their debt.
Exactly. At least stand at the door and watch her. I kind of got the sense that she was the woman for the job because she was white.
It's a little bit Powers of Darkness-y. We spent an awfully long time setting up stuff before we ever see a vampire or even get a hint. And then once it comes, then they're like, oh, we got to wrap this up. Let's wrap it up. It's not an inconsiderable runtime. It's 2:17, I think, which is actually pretty modest for the scope of this movie and how much ground they cover.
Yeah.
Very interesting experiment. As a vampire movie, I really liked the vampires. They seem well-rounded.
And interesting entry into the vampire canon. What other Black experience vampire movie do we have?
How dare you? Vampire in Brooklyn? Eddie Murphy
Blackula,
much?
Blade. It's a totally new take on vampires, and it proves the thesis that that vampires become what we need them to be when we need them to be it. And I think this was an important moment for Ryan Coogler to take this genre and to make it entirely his own, and to make it so rich, and to make it in some ways so deep.
I want to be a Sinners vampire. I figured out how they can make money because they're still culture lovers. Oh, you've got all your albums. They don't seem to live in the shadows or be outside of society. They're chilling once they get invited into Perlene's. Did you notice that was the name of Sammy's club?
No, I didn't.
But I figured it out. Remember when he sniffs Sammy and says, you don't have long? I can tell.
Yeah.
Was it cancer or was it old age?
It was all of the above.
If it was cancer, they could start like a lab thing, or you just come by their office at night and they'll sniff you and see if you have cancer or if you're dying. They could make a fortune.
They can just predict your death and you can pay them for it.
Yep. Sinners vampire. I'd take that deal.
And what about you? Our listeners, would you take that deal? Let us know, 818-835-0473 or orwhatevermovies@gmail.com or orwhatevermovies.com or wherever you get podcasts. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Whether it's in Drive, Dropbox, Slack, or that folder called Ugh, Dropbox Dash finds it fast. Smart Search. Built for messy humans. Learn more at dropbox.com/dash.
Hi, I'm Mark.
And I'm Peter.
We're the founders of Electrocast Media, bringing you great podcasts like Nightmare Road Stories, Tech Talk Revolution, and Bodacious Minds.
Electrocast networks include Ruby for female empowerment, the Best Business Network, and GPN for geopolitics. We built this company to create community and amplify diverse voices, and we really appreciate your support.
So, keep listening to Electrocast podcasts and hear the culture.
Electrocast. Electrocast.